Welcome to the Love Lab Podcast, a safe and fun place to get real and learn about sex. Whether you're a man or woman, single or couple, this is the show for you. I am your host, Kevin Anthony, and I am here to guide you to go from good to amazing in the bedroom and your relationships. All right, welcome back to the Love Lab Podcast. This is episode 306, and it's titled, What Does It Mean to Be a Healthy Masculine in Modern Society? I am really excited to have this conversation. If you've been listening to the Love Lab Podcast for any amount of time, you know that this is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. I have talked about it in various different ways on this show in the past. And I really feel, as longtime listeners who knew Celine when she was here on the show with me, you would know that this was also something she was very passionate about. And she was really working hard from the female perspective to get men to sort of see it from this point of view, to be able to step into their masculine. She was a huge champion of men really being in their masculine. So it's really work that is personal, for me, and as it was for her. And I think it's so needed and important today. There is so much pressure on men not to do the things that we're going to talk about today. So I think it's really important that the message gets out there and that men hear that message in a way that is healthy. Because there's a lot of people out there teaching different things around masculine, feminine dynamics, and some of it's really great, and some of it's really just a bunch of BS that really doesn't help men or the dynamic of relationships. So I think it's really important that we get some good positive messaging out there about what it really means. So if you're watching this show on YouTube right now, you can see that I have a guest who I'll introduce in a moment, and he is really going to help us unpack this. So I'm excited to get to the conversation. But before I do that, a short word from the sponsor, Power and Mastery. Power and Mastery 3.0 is the latest version of the popular men's sexual mastery course. If you are struggling with erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, or simply want to increase your skills in the bedroom, then Power and Mastery is for you. Join the exclusive club of men who have taken their sexual performance into their own hands and become sexual masters. Mastering your sexuality is a key component to becoming the man she has always dreamt of and craves. Don't leave your sexual performance up to chance or the throw of the dice. Become a sexual master today by going to powerandmastery.com and joining the exclusive club of men who have taken their destiny into their own hands. That's powerandmastery.com. Okay, my guest today is GS Youngblood. He coaches men in relationship, how to live, love, and lead from their masculine core. He does this using the principles of relational masculinity, which is the capacity to be grounded in your own power while still being relational with your feminine partner. I know we're going to talk about that today. He is the author of The Masculine in Relationship and the companion course, The Art of Relational Masculinity. He also wrote The Art of Embodiment for Men, which teaches men how to build and maintain a daily embodiment practice, which is the number one thing a man can do to build his masculine core. His work in this domain of masculine leadership pulls in principles from a variety of fields, including psychology, men's work, spirituality, martial arts, tango, meditation, and even BDSM. So welcome to the show, GS.
Kevin, yeah, thank you for having me on.
I told you this in the pre-interview and just before we got started here, and I just said it in the intro again, but I am excited to have this conversation. This is something that I think is super important. So I'm going to dive in head first. There's no dipping in with a toe. We just got to go straight there because I have a whole bunch of questions that all sort of rely on understanding what it is we're really going to be talking about. So my first question is, and you don't have to go into super detail because we're going to break it down as we go, but can you define what it means to be a healthy masculine man in today's world? Like, what are we even talking about when we say, here's how to be a healthy masculine man?
Yeah. It was really important to me to define something that was simple and actionable for guys. And that's what the masculine blueprint is. I mean, that's the answer to your question is the qualities in the masculine blueprint are what I think are the model of a healthy masculine in our modern time. And so number one, it's about getting grounded. Number two, it's about bringing leadership into the relationship. And number three, it's about building emotional connection and safety for your woman. If you're a guy that embodies those three qualities, you will occur to the world as more masculine.
Yeah, that's great. I love how you're keeping that simple. Now, of course, we're going to dive into each one of those three things a bit deeper as we go along. But I just wanted people to have sort of a framework, like what does it actually mean to be a healthy masculine man? Especially, I love the fact that there are a lot of people out there talking about this now, right? Because for a while there wasn't, other than, oh, it's all just toxic, right? And then, there were, of course, the David Datas who've been around forever. But, a lot of people, when his work came out, they either loved it and thought it was the greatest thing ever, or they absolutely hated it, right? My personal opinion is anybody that hated it either didn't understand it or that was actually what they needed and they were just, they had a reaction because they
Yeah.
knew that's what they needed. But be that as it may, it took a while, I think, for these teachings to really come to the forefront and become more popular like they are today. Um, and I'm really glad that that is the case. And at the same time, now that it is more popular, the waters are getting muddied a little bit. So I really wanted to make sure that we had that clear. So the next question then is, okay, we defined what this sort of healthy masculine is. Is it possible for any man, regardless of how big he is or how masculine he looks or how deep his voice
Yeah.
is or how much money he has, is this really possible for any man to become?
Yeah, you hit it on the head and you described it exactly how I do. It's like, look, guys, you don't have to be taller, more muscular, smarter, more wealthy, more clever, better looking, et cetera, to be, quote unquote, more masculine. And I tried to, when I went into this process of writing the book, I wanted to go much, much deeper than that. And like, what are the qualities of a guy that occurs as more masculine in this world? And that's what I distilled out was the three qualities that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, any man. I mean, I wrote about this in the book, I think. Um, I remember meeting this dude at a workshop. He's literally 5'4". I mean, he's a little dude, but there was something about him that just had me respect his presence, and I could feel him when he was in the room. And I talked to him about what that was about him. I asked him if he knew, and one of the answers he gave me is he had studied Krav Maga, and so there was a certain amount of power inside himself that he derived from Krav Maga that helped him have a very grounded presence. And that's one of the first. That is the first element of this blueprint that I've been talking about, is getting more grounded and responding versus reacting. And he had that in spades because of his martial arts work. And so again, you don't have to be more of anything to do this. You can cultivate these qualities within you. And then there's the, okay, well, how do I do that? And that's the work that I do with men through coaching and workshops and my online courses.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the martial arts part with your example because that is something that is near and dear to my heart. As a multidisciplined martial artist myself, I can personally vouch for how that gives you the confidence to really step up and be that. So I love that. I imagine we'll talk more about some of the possibilities, some of the hows as we go a little further on. But I'm really glad that you shared the fact that any man can do this. That is a huge part of the message that I want the listeners to get out of this today. I want them to understand what it means to be a healthy masculine. I want them to know that anybody can do it. And I want to kind of light a little fire under their ass and give them some motivation to actually want to do this. So, yeah, I'm glad that we covered that part. And I haven't had a chance to read your entire book yet, but I have gotten through some of the book. And just right off in the introduction, you actually mentioned your own personal story with your previous marriage. And I'm wondering, you know, when you were in that marriage, prior to, sort of figuring out this blueprint, would you have seen it from the same point of view that you do today? And if not, what sort of got you to make that switch?
Well, I probably say this on every podcast, but failure was my motivation. I mean, the marriage failed in a spectacular ball of flames and in a way that was particularly painful for me. And that was my fuel because I knew I knew I didn't want to live my life the way that I felt in the latter part of that marriage and at the end. I couldn't live my life like that anymore. I knew there had to be a better way. And so I set out on that path, fueled by the pain of my failure, which is what I considered to be. It was a failure of my ability to step into the relational space in a powerful way. But I knew there had to be a better way. That was my motivation to, pay thousands and thousands of dollars and spend many weekends with David Data and other people that I've trained with over the years. And, I was on a 15-year path of my own training, all fueled by my failure.
Yeah, well, failure is an amazing motivator.
Yeah, you don't learn shit from success because you don't know why you got successful. It just happens. But with failure, it really creates that drive and that grit through pain, and that's a particularly masculine thing. We learn through pain. That's one of our primary teachers, unfortunately.
Yes, it is. It's funny because I never really thought when I was younger that that was part of, sort of being masculine. I just kind of figured like, because that's been my story my whole life was sort of, why do I always have to learn things the hard way, right? Why do I actually have to experience the pain in order to figure it out? But that's always
Yeah.
been, sort of the story of my life as I've gone along. And so it's interesting now from a more mature perspective to realize that that is the hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
So that's all part of it. And I think if we can embrace that and come
Yeah.
to accept it, it makes it a whole lot easier to go through it.
It's so true. But the thing that has to happen before the hero's journey is you got to wake the fuck up.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you get this. And that's what I didn't do until that point in my life when life said, "Oh, you're not going to wake up on your own, and I'm going to give you a little slap to help wake you up." And guys, one of the things you can get out of the book is I talk a lot about what are the markers of a relationship that that results from you not stepping into your masculine, and I go through all that, and you can use this blueprint as a diagnostic. Do I get defensive when my woman gets upset? Be honest with yourself. For the answer for most guys, it's yeah, I do get defensive. Do I deny her feelings because I think they don't necessarily match the facts? When you do things like that, you don't come off as a grounded man, as a responsive man. You come off as a very reactive and scared man. Um, are you leading? Are you bringing leadership into your logistical life, your emotional life, and your sexual life? Be honest with yourself. If you're not, that's probably part of the root cause of some of your relationship problems. And again, are you creating emotional safety and connection? Are you creating financial and physical safety? If the answer is honestly no, it's most likely a contributor to your relationship problems. So you can use the blueprint as a diagnostic to wake up and say, you know what, I'm not being my full self. I'm not being a fully holistic and grounded man in this relationship. And guess what? It probably explains some of the things that are driving you nuts about your relationship. Her irritability, her criticism, her lack of sexual desire, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I'm trying to point out with this work, Kevin, is just your relationship problems are often the result of this lack of masculine feminine polarity, and that's what I'm trying to get guys to do, is to wake up to that fact, and then from there go do something about it.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. And I love that you started to go there because my next question really was, what are some of the dynamics that you're seeing today in relationships and with men that are
Yeah.
contributing to these problems? And you kind of talked about some of them. I don't know if there's any other that you want to share or like a specific one that you see commonly.
Yeah. You talking about sort of the symptoms of a relationship that
Yeah,
men would notice? Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I'll repeat myself a little bit here. Irritability. I mean, so many of my clients, their woman is just irritable. It's like, geez, do you have to be this cranky all the time? Well, it's usually the symptom that results from you not stepping up in the relationship. Criticism or second guessing is a huge one. When she doesn't trust your lead, maybe because it's been a bad lead or it's been an absent lead, then she's going to second guess and criticize a lot. And that's pretty hard for guys. Our core need well, I'll say many men's core need is to feel competent. Like, you know what the hell you're doing in life, and your woman trusts you and wants to follow your lead, but she's not feeling that. She's going to get critical. Um, a big one is lack of interest in sexuality. I mean, this is such a complaint for so many men. And guess what, guys? If her heart's not open, if she's not feeling safe, if she's not feeling you grounded, if she's not feeling a certain sense of relaxation and surrender into your lead, of course she doesn't want to have sex. Like, of course. And so so many of my clients come to me and they in our first session, they want to talk about the lack of sexuality and what he should do about that at more of a symptom level. But I'm always very clear. It's like, guys, let's go figure out why she's not interested in sexuality. And there's always usually an emotional connection related issue when there's a lack of sexuality. So those are some of the symptoms that I see pretty consistently across my client base.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think that's hardest to get men to understand is they look at those symptoms, right? She's irritable, she's complaining, she doesn't want to have sex, whatever they are, as there's something wrong with her,
Yeah,
right? This is her problem. Why is she such a bitch? Why is she always nitpicking? And really what they need to be doing is exactly what you just said is, turning around, looking in the mirror and going, where am I not showing up in this
yeah,
relationship? Why is she so irritable?
yeah.
Why is she constantly nitpicking? And, you hit on one of the absolute key things, which is she doesn't trust you. Now, I say this a lot of times to men, and they're like, "What do you mean? She knows that I would never hurt her." And I go, "No, no. Trust is so much bigger than just her physical safety,
Yeah.
right? I mean, every time you don't follow through with something that you said you were going to do, she
Right.
loses trust, right? And so
Yeah.
then why is she nitpicking? Why is she constantly saying, well, are you going to do this or are you going to do that? Because she doesn't trust you're actually going to do it.
Yeah. So true. And I want to amplify one thing that you said of men's attention is often on her and what she needs to do. And I think what you and I are both saying is no, no, you got to look at yourself. Now, a lot of guys will interpret that as it's all your fault. She's an angel and it's all your fault. And then the next thing they say is, why do I always have to be the one that sort of like needs to step forward and fix things? I want to say, hey guys, got to turn that around because what we're saying is not that it's your fault. What we're saying is that you solely have the power to fix this. You don't need her to make a decision to be different and then do the work to be different. You hope she will, and a mature woman will, but you don't need her to. What you're going to do is change how you are. That's going to evoke something different from her, and she'll change without even knowing it at that point. And so when you get more grounded, when you lead more in the relationship, when you create more physical, financial, and emotional safety for her in your relationship, when you do those three things, she gets better, her behavior gets better, the dynamic between the two of you gets better, and sometimes she doesn't even know it. It's just what is happening for her. It's like the fish not even understanding that it's in water. So what I want this to be is not a message of blame, but an empowering message. It's like, dude, you've got the power to fix this without kind of hoping somebody else decides to be different. And I want men to take that as a very empowering message.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that because I didn't want it to come across as being it's all your fault either. So I appreciate that clarification because it's absolutely right. And this is sort of a key tenet of sort of any coaching work that you're doing in the personal space is that change always starts from within, right? So if your relationship dynamic isn't working or your work relationship dynamic isn't working or your kids relationship, dynamic isn't working, it always starts from, going inside, figuring out how can I show up better? How can I be a better version of myself? And you will see those dynamics shift. And I'll add to that also, my wife, when she was alive, she did coaching work as well. She worked with both men and women. And when she was working with women, she had a thing called the 4 C's that she would teach women not to do, which is complaining, criticizing, competing, right? It's like all these things. So we're not saying, men, that it's all your fault and that if you could just, be different, suddenly everything would be better. But if you can become a better version of yourself, you will see her shift. And at the same time, the women have their side of the work to do as well. And there are people out there helping the women with that side of the work. So,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah, and
relationship.
the best way to for guys that are with a woman that does absolutely need to do some work, the best way to come to your woman and ask her, to do something, to do some development work on herself is when you've already been bringing it for a while. And so, guys, don't worry about her. Bring it for 6 months. Just bring your total A game after having done the work. And then at that point, you can say, you know what, babe, there's a dynamic in our relationship. Here's what I'm experiencing with you. And it's very important to me that you take a look at this. But you gotta come with it first before asking anybody else to do the work.
I completely agree. And the other part you said there that I also like is, you said bring it for 6 months, right? Because one of the things that I'll often hear is, I'll work with men on this and I'll say, okay, here's how you got to show up, right? And then they come back to me 2 weeks later at our next coaching call and they're like, nothing's changed. I'm like, it's been 2 weeks. You spent how many years not showing up for her? Do you think she trusts you because you changed for 2 weeks? Right? You're going to
Yeah.
need to show up consistently over and over and
Yeah.
over again so she can start to learn to trust you.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, Kevin. It's also, don't talk about what you're working on. Look what I talked about with my coach today, as if somehow that means anything to her. That's, the guy trying to get brownie points for something he talked about with his coach. Yeah. Got to bring it. You got to live it. You got to embody it. And as we both said, over an extended period of time.
Yes, yes, that's exactly what you said. You got to live it and embody it. You can't show up and pretend to be it. It's got to become who you
Yeah.
are. Because
Yeah.
even if you're a really great pretender, maybe you're a really good actor, you might fool her for a little bit of the time, but eventually she's going to see right through it. And honestly, most in tune women will see right through it from the beginning, but she will
Totally.
know when you're faking it or when you've really shifted and become it.
Yeah. Yeah. Any behavior that you're mimicking will go right out the window when you get triggered. Your nervous system gets jacked. So she's going to know it because you're going to just revert to your old behavior when you get jacked. And so you've got to be able to embody when you're triggered. That's the big thing here.
Yeah, and when that happens, so let's say you manage to keep it for a couple of weeks, and then a situation happens, you get triggered, and you revert back. Man, that's going to actually do more damage because then you're going to go however many more weeks, and she's still not going to trust you. In fact, she's just going to be waiting for the hammer to drop.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I can't add to that. You hit it on the head. You're going to artificially raise expectations. And then when you dash them, you're behind square zero. You're at square -1 at that point.
Exactly. Okay, so let's step into the actual blueprint itself. And there are three main points to that. So let's talk a little bit about each one. Just step us through the first one. What is it, and how can a man go about starting on that path?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the first is respond versus react. And this is the quality of a man who is very grounded. His nervous system is settled. And there's a quality of stillness to him that is palpable. You can just feel it in him. And when I say stillness, I'm not referring to stoicism, because stoicism is sort of like you're kind of contracted and you don't engage at all. You're just very silent and you think that's a good way to be. Well, that's going to drive the feminine nuts in like a nanosecond if you're stoic and not engaged. There's a very big difference between being grounded and being stoic. But it's a quality of stillness. It's a quality of choicefulness. It's not a guy that's just reacting to every little thing in life, but he's actually pausing and then choosing how he wants to be moment to moment. So he's pausing and choosing how he wants to speak or respond or gesture or how he even physically moves through space. All of that is very chosen. And the totality of that is what I'm talking about when I refer to respond versus react. So in the book, I go over some things around emotions. If your emotions are unacknowledged, they're just running you from behind, you're going to be very reactive. So I go into a very masculine way to relate to your own emotions. And then I talk a lot about embodiment practice as a method of getting your nervous system more grounded. And man, anybody that's heard me talk on a podcast like yours or other forums, I talk a lot about embodiment, so much so that I wrote my second book on embodiment called The Art of Embodiment. And embodiment practice is, I say this all the time, it's the number one thing a guy can do to build his masculine core. The number one thing that you can do is have a daily embodiment practice. And so guys, I really encourage you to look into this, whether it's somebody else's work or you want to look at my book and the online course that I have that's associated with it. Start a daily practice, start to ground your nervous system through these practices. So those are the main things that I talk about for the first element of the blueprint, which again is respond versus react. So I'll pause there for a second before I go into the next one.
Perfect, because I got a couple follow-up questions.
Yeah.
So first is, what would be some examples of embodiment practices that men could do? Just a couple to throw out there so they have somewhat of an idea. Like, what is he talking about? Am I supposed to go take yoga class? Like, am I supposed to go learn how to kill people? Like, is it something in between?
Yeah. I mean, anybody that's done a box breath, you're starting to do an embodiment practice. And the reason the box breath is around embodiment is because, when you breathe in that box cadence, as you do in that breath, you're bringing a lot of intention into the breath. Breath is normally autonomic, just happens. So to bring intention into breath builds that muscle of pausing and choosing that I talked about relative to being grounded. So box breathing is one of those things. Anybody that's done men's work probably has done ego eradicator, where you bring your arms up over your head at 45 degrees, and then you got hitchhiker thumbs and you do breath of fire. That is an embodiment exercise because what it's doing is bringing you face to face with a lot of physical intensity. It starts to hurt your delts pretty, after a minute or two, depending on how strong you are. And you've got to learn to sit with that intensity and make a new relationship to it. So as I lead that exercise, I'm teaching men little ways to make a different relationship to that kind of intensity. I do a lot of practices with gravity and feeling your weight on the ground, and using that as a sensation that you can tune into when you're in a relational space with somebody. So if you and I are in a relational space right now, we're talking, we're looking at each other and hearing each other. But I can do practices around feeling my weight on this chair I'm sitting on and feeling that weight while I'm still experiencing you. That has the effect of kind of calming down my ruminating, defensive, calculating mind that might be going a million miles an hour while you and I are talking. Like if we were in a more of a charged situation where our nervous systems were activated. Remembering your weight, feeling gravity while you relate with others is the basis for a lot of the practices that I give. So those are just some of the, I don't know, high level references to the kinds of embodiment practices that I do with guys.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad that you shared some of those things that aren't necessarily combat sports, right? Because again, like combat sports, because it came up earlier, with the example you used earlier in the show, and I mentioned it's something I love. It's great as far as, embodying your masculine sort of warrior side, right? But it's by no means the only way. And it's, some men gravitate towards that and love it, and some men don't. And so I didn't want people listening to this to think, oh, now I got to go out and do something that I really dislike doing, right? There's a whole range of different, what you termed embodiment practices that you could potentially do to get you into this space that don't require you to go out and get punched in the face repeatedly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you bring something up, guys will say to me, well, I do a lot of skiing. So is that embodiment? No, it's not, because it's you using your body, and that's very good. And that's a precursor to it. But it doesn't include the relational elements that are so important. We're training to become more embodied in the world with other people. We're not training to be, in a cave somewhere by ourselves. So if there's not a relational element to the practices, it's missing something. There's not an awareness training that is involved in it. A lot of the practices I do, we're training where we put our awareness. You don't do that while you're skiing. You just ski. So this is more than just using your body. Embodiment is very specifically practices that train your awareness and have a relational component to them as well.
Yeah, that's great. I like also that you mentioned the box breathing. I had a client very recently who I was teaching the box breathing to in the context of being able to last longer in the bedroom and getting him to
Yeah.
calm his nervous system down.
Mm.
And I actually, in the little handout I gave him, it was called four-sided breathing because that's just what, sometimes you'll hear it referred to as that. And that's what we decided to call it. And he looks and he goes, oh, that's box breathing. He's like, I use that all the time because he runs a business, and he's the CEO of a company. He's like, I use that all the time when I'm in like an important meeting. It never occurred to me to use it in this context, right? So it's just
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's just great that like it really does work, and it has so many potential applications for how you
Yeah.
can use these types of things. So like in his particular example, he was using it literally in board meetings, which is relational in itself, just as you were talking
Yep.
about, and yet it never occurred to him to use it in other relational situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's all the same. I mean, work can jack our nervous systems, not quite as much as intimate relationship, but yeah, we want to be able to ground ourselves and then come at the world in all capacities from that more grounded place.
Yeah, the last comment I just want to make before we move on to the second one is this idea of responding rather than reacting. It's so important. I had to reiterate it again for people to really. I hope it sinks in, right? You cannot, as a masculine man, be in reaction mode to everything that the feminine's going to throw at you because
Mm.
she's going to throw stuff at you, right? Her hormones are changing and fluctuating all the time. There's like, stuff's going to happen. Situations in life are going to happen. You got kids, lots of situations are going to happen, right? Things are going to happen. And if you get in that reactive mode where you're reacting without really thinking about how you're doing it, you are just going to create problem after problem after problem. And so number one may sound simple. Oh, we just respond instead of react, but it's huge. It's so huge. And that's the point I wanted to make. Do not take number one lightly. The profound impact that one change alone could make could really shift things.
Yeah, and that's why it's listed first because it's the foundational one. It can be hard to lead if you're kind of jacked. It can be definitely hard to create emotional connection when you're jacked. So, yeah, there's a reason that we lead with that because it's so foundational.
Yep, yep. Okay, so that takes us into the second one. Talk about the second part.
Yeah, this is about leadership and it's called provide structure. And so providing direction and structure. It's like, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? And so this is the quality of a man who brings, first and foremost, a lot of clarity to the table. Like you can't lead anybody unless you have inner clarity about what the moment calls for. And it's not just inner clarity about what you want, it's inner clarity about what you want. It starts there, but it also folds in the needs of others around you who are involved in this. We're not trying to be narcissistic dicks here. We do want to take into account the needs and boundaries of other people. So we have inner clarity that then gets expressed as outer direction. And that may be decisiveness. You might just make a decision, or you're the person that is just making sure a decision gets made. Like you don't have to make all the decisions in life. You do want to fulfill the role of the person who's making sure a decision gets made, and then everybody's on the same page about that. That's clarity and alignment and structure, and that's all part of the masculine gift that you can bring to the world. Is kind of a bias for action, a bias for forward movement, a bias for clarity, and then making sure everybody's tied into that clarity. That's a beautiful masculine presence in any situation, as long as you're not doing that in an overbearing way. Like we're not trying to train just alpha energy and everybody does it your way. We want to have more, we want to be more relational than that. So we do include other people, but we don't go into sort of an endless democracy spin where everybody gets a voice and then nobody ever makes a decision. That's where your bias for forward movement and action comes in. So that's respond versus react. It's that clarity that starts from the inside and then gets expressed as outer direction and structure.
Yeah, and you did such a good job of explaining the healthy way to do this because this is the area when it comes to masculine feminine dynamics that gets so twisted and screwed up uh, out there in the ether, world of people teaching this stuff, and how the idea of it gets misinterpreted, right? Which is this
Hmm.
idea of leading, right? You'll hear a lot of people teaching it, but you'll often hear the sort of backlash to that is, well, I'm not a slave. I don't want to be led, like blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
you did a good job of saying this isn't about dictating, right? So I always make the distinction, dictating versus leading, right? And I love that part that you brought about. It's like you don't even have to necessarily be the one to make the decision. You just need to make sure that a decision is made. And
Yeah.
that's a beautiful way of stating it, right? So yeah, I would always give an example of like, trying to figure out where to go for dinner, right? And the guy who's not stepping up is in the, well, whatever you want, dear, and whatever makes you happy. And then she's like, well, I don't really know what I want. And he's like, well, just tell me what you want, right? And then you get in this endless back and forth, right? So you've got that. Then you've got the more dictator thing who's like, we're going here because that's where I want to go. That's the end of story, right? That's no
Yeah.
good either. And then we've
Yeah.
got the middle path, which is, hey, I've got a plan. How about I take you to that new restaurant that just opened up, the one we've been talking about, maybe checking out. And she might go, yeah, I do still want to check that out, but I'm just not in the mood for that kind of food, right? And so then you as your masculine, okay, great. How about this? I have another idea, right? So it's that idea of you are leading and directing it, but you're not necessarily dictating like, yes, we're going there because that's where
Mhm.
I want to go kind of thing. It's a
Yeah.
simple example, but I think it does a fairly good job of illustrating that, which is just another way of saying what you said.
Yeah, and you touched on something that you weren't making this your point, but you just breezed right across it. If she doesn't follow your lead the first time around, you don't collapse. You're like, oh, okay, you don't want to do that. All right, I got this other thing, and there's an element of creativity to that, but there's a big element of robustness because sometimes it won't always be easy as she doesn't want to go to the restaurant. Like there could be something you're kind of taking more pride in. And she's like, no, that doesn't work for me. And then you're going to get all bowed up because you've got all this pride and you're now reacting like kind of like a little boy whose mommy scolded him when she doesn't follow your lead. So we probably don't need to go into it in this conversation because this could go on, but the whole how do you deal with resistance to your leadership is such a big thing. And it's the thing I talk about in one of my video courses, the art of relational masculinity. It's like how to deal with resistance of your leadership.
Yeah, let's keep that in the back of our minds. If we have time at the end, I would like to touch on that a little bit because that is a question that comes up a lot with men. There are definitely some answers to that, but we'll table that for a little bit because we have a few more things to get into.
Yeah,
Uh, it's also time for me to take a short break, and then I want to come back and talk about the third component to this blueprint.
got it.
Men, are you tired of falling short in the bedroom and your relationship? Do you want your woman to respect you and crave your cock? Do you want to be the man she secretly brags about to all her friends? What if you could become this man? What if you could not only master your masculine sexuality, but also be the dream man who shows up for his woman in all the ways she desires? What if you could become so irresistible that she becomes addicted to you? If you are ready to become that man, then check out my Become the Man of Your and Her Dreams coaching program by going to kevinandceline.com/go/man of her dreams. That link is in the description below. This is my coaching program where I get to blend the work I do in helping you fix your sexual challenges, also with some of what we're talking about today and a whole bunch of other stuff. So if that sounds interesting to you, go check that out. Of course, at the end of this episode, if you like what you're hearing from GS and you resonate with his message, then I encourage you to go check him out and find his work as well. There is enough work in this area to go around for all of us. So I encourage you to pick the person that resonates with you if you're struggling with any of these areas and just do the work. Do the work. I don't care who you work with. Just do the work. This world needs more men who are stepping up in their power. I don't care how you get there, just do the work. So, all right. So we're talking about the masculine blueprint. We covered numbers 1 and 2. Let's talk about the third one. What is that?
This is create safety. And what we're referring to is physical, financial, and emotional safety. And Physical safety. I don't talk about it a lot in the book. I kind of have it planned for the next sequel. But put simply, it's more than just beating up a mugger that jumps out. I mean, that's a pretty rare occurrence. I can't say it's ever happened to me. But there's a lot more to physical safety. And so the example I always give is, did you put fire extinguishers in the house, or the fire alarm that beeped because the battery went dead? You just unplugged it. And do you have a spare tire, or sorry, a tire iron in her car? Does she know how to use it, or have you gotten her AAA? I mean, these are all safety things. Have you fixed the lock on the back door that's been broken for 6 months? Do you have an emergency plan if shit were really to hit the fan? These are all things that relate to physical safety, and they're somewhat non-obvious. And so that is part of the masculine role as protector, to take care of these things and not ignore them, or expect her to take care of them. So that's physical safety. Financial safety it's a lot about being responsible, both in your earning as well as your saving and nurturing and investing. And it's not about being wealthy. You don't have to be wealthy to be a provider. But you do need to have your shit together and make sure that the bottom doesn't drop out, and making good decisions along the way. Um, and also with the financial safety, there's a flip side. You have to be careful not to go into the dark side, where all you do is work, and then you come home and you're not really participating, either in household maintenance, or upkeep of the house, or the family, or her emotional needs. And you keep telling yourself, well, I earn $2 million a year, so why the fuck do I need to hang the pictures? Why don't you just get somebody to do that? And she'll feel your absence if you just over identify with being a provider. So there's a dark side to physical, financial security that men need to pay attention to. But the biggest one I talk about is emotional safety. It's not a thing that guys know a lot about, or
Unfortunately.
yeah, like, what are you talking about, emotional safety? Um, but I'll say this: when you get defensive, basically what you're saying is you're wrong to feel that way, so stop feeling that way. And here's my factual case to prove it. She's going to feel really unheard, unseen, unfelt, and that you've denied her experience. And so, that's where men need to learn how to validate her emotions. That doesn't mean that you say that they're correct emotions. Emotions have very little to do with facts, and guys would be wise to stop trying to reconcile the two in the moment, in a heated moment. Um, but emotional safety has a lot to do with validating her emotions, and knowing how to deal with some of the crazy that comes along with it. It's something I talk about in that online course I mentioned earlier. And also building emotional connection. And I think there's a lot of women who don't feel emotionally connected to their man, and then you get a lot of those behaviors, the irritability, the criticism, the lack of sexual interest. With guys, telling you, when you build emotional connection, it's like a big cushion that you put around everything, and the inevitable bumps and bruises of relationship, where things are always going to flare up. If you've got emotional connection, you have so much more leeway and cushion than if you don't have a strong emotional connection with her. So one of the things that is really passionate for me is my boot camp, my relationship repair boot camp. And we, among other things, we go into very concrete ways to build emotional connection with your woman. And I, that's kind of work I really love doing, is building that. Some people would say, "Oh my gosh, that's not traditional masculinity." And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? It like absolutely is. Like, I'm telling you guys, it is not masculine to be fighting with your woman. So if you think masculinity is about, like, I'm not putting up with this emotional crazy nonsense, like, that's bullshit, then you're going to be a man that's fighting with his woman a lot. And it's not going to look very masculine. And you're going to be a man that cycles through relationships 6 months at a time, because any woman with a spine does not want to be with a man that doesn't make her feel emotionally safe and connected. So this is really important work for guys.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything that you just said. I had so many
Mhm.
things I wanted to say, but you know, I don't really even need to reiterate it because you said it really well. I'll just say this. I like the fact that you showed very clearly there that safety is a lot more than just the physical safety. And that's a huge point that I've been trying to get across for a while. My wife and I, when she was like, we did a whole show on what does safety actually mean to the woman, right?
Yeah,
Like from her point
yeah,
of view, what does it mean to feel safe? Because exactly what you just said, a lot of guys have no idea that emotional safety is like a thing.
mhm,
You tell a man,
yeah.
oh, she doesn't feel safe, and is the first thing he'll go to. Well, of course she feels safe. She knows I would never hurt her. She knows that I make sure the doors are locked, whatever it is, and they
Those I love
never
her.
even, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But they never think about the rest of it. And it's interesting too. You mentioned that potentially some men feel that caring for her emotional needs isn't masculine. I, I do not disagree that some men do feel that. It boggles my mind. Like, as the masculine, I can't think of a role that's more important for you, in the context of relationship than doing that, than caring for her emotional
yeah,
needs. And if you can do that in a skillful way, that actually shows just how much of a masculine man and an accomplished
yeah,
man you are, because that's actually a
yeah.
challenging task.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of guys have that misconception that you mentioned because what they've seen is a feminine expression of emotion and they think they're supposed to be like that, but there's actually a very masculine way to be with your emotions, to feel your emotions, to express and share your emotions. So that's what I think would help guys turn the corner on this one is stop envisioning a feminine style of dealing with emotions. Start perfecting and practicing a masculine style of being with your emotions, and that's very different, and also super useful and powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. I wonder if you could, very, sort of shortly, like, is there a way that you can say in words, describe what is really the difference between dealing with the emotions in a masculine way versus a feminine way? Like,
Oh,
what would
it's
that
I
look
mean
like?
at a high level, it's easy to describe. I mean, the remember that women feel things like 10 times more than we do. So when she feels something, she can't contain it. It's like a water balloon bursting. It's just going to come out and be a little messy. Sometimes it's going to be a little toxic. It won't always be that way. So it's not like all women all the time. We're not saying that. We're saying some women, some of the time, it gets a little toxic and just kind of sprays everywhere and splatters, and it's messy and it goes on and it's not connected to facts and it gets a little crazy. Masculine style is you feel it deeply and then you share judiciously, and so you're succinct. You talk about what you use things like nonviolent communication where you're really clear about it. Something happened and it had this impact on me, um, and then you might make a request. Would you be willing? So it's very clear, but it's real, and it's not. You're being such a bitch, so can you please stop doing that? It's like when you get angry like that, I actually get really scared, baby. And what I'd like is, are you okay if I sometimes call a timeout when it gets too much for me? So you're making some kind of request there. That's more of a masculine style of expressing your emotions. And when you can do that, she's like, oh my God, like finally, you've actually shared something of what's going on inside of you instead of trying to paper it over and tell me everything's fine. And then she's just going to breathe this breath of fresh, she's going to breathe this big sigh of relief, because you actually started to reveal what she already felt about you. And now there's coherence between the two. And that's a huge deal, that level of coherence, inner and outer coherence that she needs to experience with you in order to feel emotionally safe with you. And so that's my high level explanation of the difference between a masculine style of being with your emotions versus a feminine style.
Yeah, that was great. I'm glad that, I mean, obviously you've had to explain this in words before, because sometimes with these concepts they can be a little tricky if you haven't really sat down to like figure out like what is a really clear way to explain them. Obviously you've done that because that was a great example. I also like that you brought in the piece about nonviolent communication, because I was chuckling inside when you said that, because I actually had somebody. So obviously I'm a fan of nonviolent communication. It was something that I was into long before I was even doing this work. And I talk about it periodically when it comes up in various shows or YouTube videos or things that I do. I actually had somebody not too long ago comment on one of my videos about how unmasculine nonviolent communication actually is. And I roll my eyes, because when I hear stuff like that, I just go, okay, I know where you're at.
Yeah, look, we're all emotional beings. It's just part of our physiology. Let's quit denying it. Men need to be able to contain and share judiciously and succinctly. So we don't blast, we choose what to release. But to deny that we're all emotional beings is so silly. And that it sounds like that's where that guy was.
Well, you know how it is out there in social media land. You get all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
that one really, it's obviously I remember it because it stuck with me, because I just remember thinking how absurd it was.
Yeah. Yeah. You just write him back and ask him how those 6-month relationships, in perpetuity are going for him.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anything else you want to share on that blueprint? We covered all three, I think. Is there any other things you want to share about the blueprint and, how men might use it or anything like that before we move on to a couple of other quick things?
I mean, I think we did a good job. I would just say, guys, do the work, and if the blueprint is the path you want to follow, cool. I feel like it can help you a lot.
Awesome. Okay. Um, I had a note in here because I kind of want to talk about it. It is something that comes up fairly often with men. And the question really is, what's wrong with being the nice guy?
Hmm. Yeah. This is a question we should ask Robert Glover, a good friend. You know, he wrote the book on nice guys, and so I'll even channel him as my answer is well, one, you're not nice. You're just getting more and more pissed underneath, and it's going to come out in these weird ways. And I think Robert does a good job of covering that. Also, you're really shortchanging your woman by not showing some of yourself. One, because your resentment's going to really impact the relationship negatively. Two, she doesn't know where you really stand, so she's always in a state of confusion about where you stand, even if she doesn't know it. If she consciously believes your words, but subconsciously she's like, is he really telling me what's going on for him? And that's hard on the feminine nervous system. Um, and then three, she's not going to experience you as powerful. If you're always doing the nice guy thing and just giving her what she wants, like we've talked about earlier in this conversation. So that's going to really hurt your relationship. And when she doesn't perceive your power, she doesn't feel safe. When she doesn't perceive that you've got a core of inner clarity that she can then orbit around. I mean, that's what people want from their leader. They want clarity in their leader so they can simplify their own life and their own psychology by then orbiting around that. That doesn't mean um, idolizing them or worshiping them, but it's like, okay, I can tell you're here and these are your needs and this is your emotional state. And so here's my needs and my emotional state. Now I understand how these two fit together. So that's what I'm talking about when I say orbit.
Mhm.
That's really comforting. Even if somebody disagrees with you, it's good to know that rather than have it be unspoken. If somebody's in a bad mood, you don't have to kowtow to that, but it's good to know that's where they stand. And so that's what being a nice guy prevents, because nobody knows where the hell you stand. So those are some of the ways where nice guyness can really just create rot in the core of a relationship.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I wanted to at least address it a little bit, because the reaction to, what I call sort of the old school macho asshole masculine has been to go to the complete other side of the spectrum and become the wishy-washy nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, most of, especially the younger men today, don't want to be, the asshole toxic masculine, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then they end up over in the being Mr. Nice Guy, and then they wonder, why their relationships are a disaster and they're not
Mhm.
working. And they can't figure it out because they're like, but I'm giving her everything she wants and I'm being the Mr. Nice Guy and I'm not doing all those toxic behaviors. I don't get it. Why is this still not working?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I don't even know how I could add to that. It's the guys are in a state of confusion. They're like, it's you don't give them what they want. It's like, where the hell are you? And I'm gonna just like through my own emotion, I'll channel the how pissed women are at us. Like, where the fuck are you in this equation? I'm tired of hearing about myself. I'm channeling the woman now. I'm tired of this just always being about me. Like, where are you in there? I need you. I need to have you as a fulcrum to pivot around, kind of a la how I talked about that earlier. I need you. Where are you? That's kind of what our women are saying, and when we do the nice guy thing.
Yeah, and this is the root of, you've heard, I'm sure, many times, like this idea that women test us as men, right? They
Yeah,
test us all the time. This is
yeah,
the root of it. They're testing us because they want to know exactly what you just said. Where are you? Where do you
yeah,
stand? Can I trust you? Can I rely on you? That's
yeah.
what the testing is all about. And men get all frustrated all the time when their women, even if they realize that she's testing them, they get frustrated, like, why is she testing me? Because she needs to trust you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sometimes it's the only way. Like
Yeah.
men can talk all good game till the cows come home, but if you can't pass the test, clearly you're full of shit.
Yeah, and the tests are where it's at. And women are absolute experts at cutting through the bullshit with their tests and figuring out where you actually stand.
So true. So true. They see into us and feel things in us that we don't even do. And so when they see this discontinuity between what we present and what they either feel or what we show them under the stress tests, that's a problem. That is a lack of coherence. And that's what our women need from us. They need coherence between inner and outer.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are right up at the end of the show. I had a couple more questions, but I think we've done a really good job so far of getting the point that we wanted to get across. So I just want to open up the floor for two things. One, if there's any last advice you have for men, and then also if they resonate with what you're saying, if they like this type of work, how can they find you?
Yeah. Last advice. Be unafraid to lose her. And let me explain what I mean by that. Is we're so in fear of upsetting the apple cart, and even though we don't necessarily, I mean, some cases we do, but most of the time we don't necessarily think she's going to walk out the door. But even her getting upset and giving us the cold shoulder is kind of abandoning us and losing her, but it's just more temporary. And it's very painful for guys. And so we end up contorting ourselves to avoid controversy or anything like that. And so I see a lot of my clients really afraid to stand up and be themselves. So start with be unafraid to lose her, know your truth and just be okay to speak it in a skillful way. And that's going to open up a lot for a lot of guys. So that's some high level advice I would give to most men. How to find me? Yeah, gsyoungblood.com. The things that I'm most proud of right now are my relationship repair boot camp. So it's an online course, but it's live and it's with me. And you go through it with a cohort of around 10 to 12 men. And it's an 8-week experience. And we take the blueprint and we just go super deep with practices in each of the areas that you and I have talked about today. And it ends up just being an awesome experience. The guys bond, they learn from each other, they're getting to know other men of depth in ways that they don't have in their life right now. So I really like this group experience. Seems to be there's like a multiplicative effect in terms of the learning. So that's the thing I'm most excited about. If for less time and resources, you can get my online course, which is a video course, The Art of Relational Masculinity. It goes into a lot of these things, and I'm very, very proud of that course. And then you could if you want to just see more of me, you can look on YouTube. And GS Youngblood MIR on Instagram. That's another place where you can go and just see videos of me talking about various things. So those are the primary ways that I can work with men. Also, we have a workshop coming up. It's on leading in the bedroom. This is going to be in October. here in San Francisco. So take a look at that on the website and see what that's all about. But we're going to blow the doors off that one. They're always a lot of fun to do that one.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Just from what I know of you and your work in this conversation, I would have no problems at all highly recommending people check out those workshops and those courses, because I know, just based on what you've said, that you are going to learn some important skills that have the potential to really change your life. That's what all this work is about, right? It's trying to change people's lives.
Exactly. Yeah, life's too short, man, to go through it with a crappy relationship or as a nice guy, as we talked about.
Isn't that the truth? Okay, I got one last question for you. It's a question I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that is, what is your best sexual talent?
What a question. Let's call my girlfriend. Hey, baby. I think she would tell you the way that I'm very creative about creating sensation on her body during our sexuality.
Very nice. Oh, I bet she enjoys that.
Mm-hmm.
My wife actually came up with that question. She used to love to ask guests on that, because on this show, we're sex, love, and relationships. So we do cover a lot of things that have to do with, the sexual piece of a relationship. So she used to love asking that question. So I've kind of continued that tradition along, and it's a fun question to ask. It's kind of lighthearted, and I get some really interesting answers. So thanks for being open to answering that question.
Yeah, and I really wish I could have met your wife. She sounds like she was an amazing woman.
She really was. She was an amazing woman. She was a fantastic coach, and she helped so many people and continues to do so with the recorded, videos and courses that she created. So part of my honoring her is keeping that going for as long as I can, so that she can continue to have an impact in the world.
Love that.
All right, GS, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience. I really hope that people could take some valuable pieces away from this. I can tell you from my own personal experience, not just doing coaching work, but just through my own relationships and applying this stuff myself, it works. It absolutely works. And so, if you're over there going, I don't understand why my relationships aren't working or what's going on, I strongly suggest that you take a look at this stuff pretty seriously and dive in if you can.
Right on.
All right, everybody, that's all the time I have for this episode, and I will see you next week. I hope you liked this episode of the Love Lab podcast. If you enjoy this show, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. And for more free exclusive content, join me in the Passion Vault at kevinandceline.com/vault. That's kevinandceline.com/vault. Thanks for listening, and remember, as Celine used to say, you're amazing.